Aloha and welcome to this post-WOD post-mortem. We had kind of a two-part WOD today, two functions using the underscore library. The first one looks like pretty much everybody got this one. It involved reducing over the data set to find the total number of contributions to all candidates. And that was pretty easy, and everybody, I think, got that one okay. The second one was fairly hard because it involved creating a new kind of data structure out of the original data structure. And that's an extremely useful skill to have, but I think it's going to take a couple more weeks before you guys are kind of fluent with doing that. So this is, we're going to discount this part of the WOD for today and give you a little more time to get comfortable. But I wanted to show you kind of how you do that. And to begin, one key thing to realize is that, and hopefully most of you got this, is that we want to get the maximum number of contributions in this data set. And what that means is that we need an array of objects that all look like this. And then we call the max function and ask for and have it look at the amount field, and then we get the corresponding object back, right? So that's the key kind of insight to get you started with this, is somehow we have to get an array of these things. And so kind of working backward, if what we want to result in is returning this object, then before that we're going to call the max function, and we're going to have an array of objects that all look like that, of course, with different candidates and different amounts. Okay, so how do we get to that kind of object? And this is the key thing. I think this is the stumbling block for a lot of you, is that then the intermediate data structure that you'll want to have is an object that looks like this, where you have the keys are the actual names of the candidates, and the values are their total contributions. And in fact, this would have been a pretty simple function. I think most of you could have gotten it if I said, oh, I just want you to return it in a way that looks like that. Okay, but I didn't. Okay, so it made it a little bit harder. And then, so how do we get to that one? Well, the kind of the first step is to actually, I need to put a final bracket on there. The first step is to actually reduce or group the data by candidate. So we've got the name of a candidate and then all of the records associated with them, so we can do that reduction. Okay, so let's look at all of these four steps in turn. We'll work kind of forwards, but it's pretty important when you're trying to solve these problems, I think, to just start off by kind of thinking through the steps that you want to take to get to your final result, and then implement the functions to do so. So this first one, group by candidate, we're just going to call the group by function, passing it the data, and then the field that we want to group by. So if I call this on our test data, then what we'll see is something that looks like this. I just have an object that has a candidate name and then the array of values. Okay, I think I had another. I had another uncommented console log. That's what that second one is. Okay, so that's. And then if we look at the array, we can see the array is one of these actual records. Okay, so that's the first thing, to get the data grouped by candidate. And then once we have that, we want to do a map, okay, over the object. Okay, so we're going to map over all the object, and we'll be taking this object as the start. Okay, so we're going to start with our original. We're always starting with the original data set. Okay, in all of these functions. So now we're going to create this object here, and then the function that we're going to pass and be given each of these records is going to reduce the records into their totals. Okay, so if we call that we get this object as a result, a single object where the keys are the actual names of the candidates and the values are the totals from each of these. And I'm using this test data set to kind of make things easy. Okay, so now here's the function that I think tripped up a lot of you, which is how do we go from an object like this into an object that's going to look like this. Okay, and we did have this in the practice WAD, so you would have hopefully have seen this before. But the idea is that we're going to first get all the keys. Okay, that'll return a list of all these objects, and then we're going to map over all of those keys with a function that takes a key and then simply returns an object where the name field is the key, that's the name of the person, and the amount is the contributions field associated with that key. Okay? And when we do that, okay, so think that through. When we do that, if I comment out the previous, okay, now we've got an object. Instead of a single object with 4 kind of entries in it, now we have an array of 4 objects where each object has 2 values, a name, and an amount. Okay, so that's how we do that in a couple lines of code. Okay, and now that we've done that, the final piece of the pie is to simply take the max of the object that gets returned by calling candidate contributions, and then we pass a record which indicates what field it is that we're actually checking to see for the max. And so if we call this one, okay, you can see here's the result, the object name David Ige. Okay, so what's the 2 takeaways from this? The first takeaway is that it's good to kind of design your path at a high level, even with example data structures here, to kind of see how you're going to go. And then each of these helper functions always starts by taking the original data set, either the test data or you can take the entire data, so that I can always kind of do an intermediate test to see that starting with my original data set, I'm building up the correct transformation of the data to get where I want to go. That's the kind of the 2 concrete procedural things that you want to think about. So I hope you enjoyed this. Here's the JS Fiddle RU2 V4 FA8. Feel free to go to it, check it out, play around with it. It'll be useful to you, I think, in terms of moving on. And I hope you enjoyed this WAD.